I would like to welcome everybody today. My name is Brian Alexander, and I'm honored to welcome you to the 2025 fundraising luncheon for the Mountain District of the Black Warrior Council, Boy Scouts of America. Our district serves Walker, Winston, Marion, Fayette, and Lamar counties, providing young men and women with invaluable tools to become better citizens, neighbors, and friends. Your presence today ensures that scouting remains strong, giving more youth the opportunity to participate. This event wouldn't be possible without the generosity of many sponsors. We extend our sincere appreciation to our sponsors. I want to read all those sponsors to you. We want to make sure that everybody is recognized. Our gold level sponsors: Drummond Company, Carl Cannon Chevrolet, John Drummond, Abby Drummond, Patrick Drummond, Steve Hudson and Associates, Judy Hager, Sam and Jane Murphy, Gerson and Judy May, Dr. and Mrs. Charles W. Nolen Jr., River Peak Partners of Raymond James, the Thompson Foundation, Hyundai of Jasper, Bill Penny, Ford, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, and Toyota. Rick and Beth Stooks, Dr. Larry Thorne, John Glover, Babs, and Michael Anderson. Our silver level sponsors: White Pepper Real Estate, Pinnacle Bank, Baptist Health Walker Hospital, Nelson Brothers, Southeast Hospice Network, Ridgeview Ridgewood Health Services, Anthony and Robin Allen, Richard and Cheryl Mullen, the William B. Long family, Rick Stewart and Stewart Lubrication Services. Our bronze level sponsors: Jasper Lumber Company, Byers Realty, AMC Realty, Brooks Insurance Group, Laird, Robertson and Allen, the Mosquito Authority, Alabama Power, Cinfa, Matt Woods, Alabama Credit Union, Dave and Alicia Stewart, Alabama Farm Credit, Matthew and Ashley Laird, S&W Power Sports, Avid Signs and Graphics, Dream Event Photography, Dreamland Barbecue, Bank of Walker County, Buyers Right Insurance, Bevel State Community College, Dr. Casey and Lorraine Vake, Jasper Auto Sales, High Point Furniture, Leaf and Pedal, Synovus, Timmons Infrared, Aqua Express, All Four Real Estate, Delta Transfer Lines, and WJOX 101.5. Thank you so much to our sponsors. Duty to God and country remains at the heart of scouting. To begin our program, we invite the Jasper High School JROTC Exploring Post 925 to present the colors, followed by our invocation led by Reverend James Johnson of Jasper's First Methodist Church. If everyone will please stand.
Forward, march! March on! March! Drill! Hold!
Will you join with me as we express gratitude for the honor which they have presented to us? Let us pray. Gracious and loving God, as we stand in this room today, we thank you for the men and women who have poured their lives into Scouts to develop character, service, innovation, Lord, to connect us with all creation, and to connect us with one another. We thank you for the nation in which we live and the freedoms that we enjoy. May we pass on all that we have, the best part of us, to those who come next. May the young men and young women who are touched by Scouting prosper and shape the future of our nation. We thank you for this food that has been placed before us today, and may our lives honor you and glorify you in all that we say and do. In the name of Jesus Christ we pray. Amen.
This luncheon's success is due to the dedication of our Mountain District fundraising team. Please stand to be recognized. Chad Hayes, Judd Allen, Cade Deal, Andrew Harris, Chad Hill, Ted Killingsworth, Walker Wilson, Matthew Laird, Byrne Hendricks, Austin McLemore, Russ Robertson, Whit Wilson, Bryant Brooks, Kevin Callahan, and Billy Dawes. Thank you for your commitment to keeping Scouting strong in our district. At this time, it is my pleasure to introduce local Black Warrior Council board member, Russ Robertson.
Thank you, Brian, and good afternoon to everyone. It's a privilege and an honor to be part of this event, like it is every year, to honor a friend of mine and a great friend to Scouts and other charities in Alabama, Mr. Larry Drummond, and also to recognize someone who is deserving of the honor that's going to be presented in his name here in just a few minutes. On behalf of the Black Warrior Council, I want to thank every one of you for being with us today. Your support is greatly appreciated, and we're happy that you're here. Today's world provides more negative influences to relentlessly bombard our youth than at any time in history. We're seeing record rates of anxiety, of substance abuse, juvenile crimes, even suicide. These cases are not isolated. They are certainly in every community and affect almost every family. But for the past 103 years, the Black Warrior Council has served West Central Alabama, giving a positive impact to youth, to their families, and also to the community at large. Our volunteers, staff board members, and you, the donors, help serve as a shield to some of the harsh challenges that our youth face. Scouting provides a sense of accomplishment. That leads to confidence. It provides a sense of belonging. That leads to lifelong friendships, as many of us who participated in the Scouting program can tell you. Scouting provides a sense of service, and that leads to developing leadership. In short, Scouting helps prepare youth for life. Scouting is making a difference in our society because of dedicated volunteers and community support like yours. I would like to take a moment to recognize those who are present who either participated in Scouting either as a leader or as a youth. If you're a Scouting alumni, please stand up. And if you earned the Eagle Scout Award, please remain standing. You all have on your table a copy of the 2024 annual report, which highlights some of the council's accomplishments over the past year. If you need additional copies, those are available on request when you leave today. Feel free to take as many as you like and to distribute them to anyone that needs to hear about what we're doing in Scout. Scouting gets kids outdoors. It teaches valuable skills, but it does a lot more than just take kids camping. It teaches young people how to live productive and healthy lives, gives them the tools to be successful professionals, spouses, parents, and community members. It continues to flourish in our community because of dedicated volunteers and the continued support of generous community leaders. Your support here today will enable nearly 1,000 Cub Scouts, Scouts BSA, venturers, and explorers in the Mountain District to continue receiving a value-driven program. An important part of Scouting success is the Boy Scouts' commitment to community service. Last year, Scouts in the Mountain District completed over 27,500 hours of community service. Those hours have a value of approximately $295,000 in work donated to our communities. But more importantly, the Scouts who participated in those service projects learned the valuable lesson of giving back to the community in which they live. They learned that service to others is important. Scouts get off their computers, they put down their phones, and they work together to make communities better. I hope that you are proud of the young people that Scouting is helping to mold. Young people that will one day be the leaders in our community, sitting at the tables where you're now sitting. Leaders with character and values developed through the Scouting experience. Your support today will help in the care and upkeep of 3 beautiful outdoor council camps, including Camp Overeer right here in Jasper. And finally, your support will enable us to give underprivileged youth an opportunity to join the movement. The Black Warrior Council annually spends about $375 per child to provide the Scouting program to registered youth in our district. So, this is it. If you haven't already had the opportunity to make your 2025 gift, please take a moment to fill out the pledge card on your table. Sign it. 100% of that gift goes to support Scouting in the Mountain District. So I'll give everybody an opportunity to do that. Once you have your pledge card complete, if you'll hold it up, one of our staff will be by to collect it. And we'll take just a minute to let that happen.
I don't know why it just randomly is not playing anymore. So many people have to see each other once a year, twice a year.
Yeah, that's all right.
Thank you all very much for helping keeping the fires of scouting burning bright in the Mountain District. Give yourselves a big round of applause for all this money we're raising. Hopefully, we'll be able to give y'all a very good report before you leave today about how much we've already raised for 2025 in Scouts. It's now time for our special award. If you're here, I don't have to tell you, but Larry Drummond was a loyal and generous benefactor to the Scouting program, among many other causes. And the folks in the Mountain District felt that the best way to honor his memory was to create an award in his name. This award, the EA Larry Drummond Lifetime Scouting Achievement Award, is being presented to a person who exemplifies Mr. Drummond's service to the community and to the Scouting program. Based on the example that Mr. Drummond set, the recipient is chosen based on years of unselfish giving to the Scouts and by a life lived according to the 12 points of the Scout Law. Trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. So now, members of the Drummond family, I know we have Patrick here today. It may just be Patrick, which is fine. So will Patrick and our local Black Warrior Council board members please come to the stage for the presentation. The award today is going to be presented to Stephen Nolen. Steve, will you and your family make your way up? In 1976, at the age of 17, Stephen Merrill Nolen earned the rank of Eagle Scout as a member of Troop 45 in Fayette, Alabama. Little did he know at that time the impact that Troop 45 would have on his life. Steve went on to attend the University of Alabama, earning a Bachelor of Science from the College of Commerce and Business Administration, and he graduated from Cumberland School of Law in 1982. Following graduation, Steve and his wife, Jasper native Susan Hudson Nolen, returned to Fayette. Following in his father's footsteps, he opened a law practice there. Upon his return, and under his previous scoutmaster, Charles Leahy, Steve became the assistant scoutmaster of Troop 45. A few months later, he would assume the role of scoutmaster, which he holds to this day. In 37 years as scoutmaster, let me say that again. In 37 years as scoutmaster, Steve has volunteered innumerable hours investing in the young men of Fayette County. Troop 45 has shaped and continues to shape hundreds of scouts, 83 of whom have earned the prestigious rank of Eagle Scout. 83 Eagle Scouts in 37 years. That's more than 2 per year. Steve has camped year-round with the troop during the entirety of his leadership, including making all the weekly scout meetings. Each year, they go on hikes in Cheaha State Park, in the Cincy Wilderness. They do a week at summer camp, and several other scouting adventures. I can testify as a young staff member at Camp Horn to seeing the scoutmaster from Troop 45 have to come, before cell phones, have to come to the office to call his law office a couple of times a day and try to maintain the law practice while he was at Camp Horn for a whole week. And I saw him do it with my own eyes. Troop 45 has completed the 25-mile canoe trip at Grimes Canoe Base in Linden, Tennessee for 36 years. They've also gone to the Florida Sea Base and Philmont Scout Ranch. Steve has completed the rigorous 10-day Philmont hike in the mountains of New Mexico 5 times, and he hopes to go again. He's been awarded the Silver Beaver and 2 District Awards of Merit by the Black Warrior Council for his leadership. He's completed the Premier Adult Leadership Training Course Wood Badge. He earned that in 1992. Outside of scouting, Steve's life reflects his deep values of serving and building up his community. He's a church member, Sunday school teacher, and deacon at Fayette First Baptist Church. At church events, you may find him in the kitchen helping prepare food or maybe washing the dishes. He is president of the Fayette Memorial Garden Cemetery, a longtime member of the Fayette Cattlemen's Association, Fayette County Fair Board, and the Christmas at the Park Committee. Troop 45 often serves alongside Steve, parking cars at the fair, tending the cemetery grounds, putting up American flags downtown, and helping with Christmas lights at the park. He's been Fayette's municipal judge since 2018. He is currently the city attorney and prosecutor for the town of Byrne. He's an assistant district attorney for Fayette County and the 24th Judicial Circuit. He's a faithful husband, devoted father, and rock star granddad to 7 grandchildren. His life embodies all 12 points of the Scout Law and also the Scout's Oath, where it says we will help other people at all times. Ladies and gentlemen, congratulate Steve Nolen. Steve, I hope you'll come say a few words.
He said it was okay if I spoke for an hour. Get those, I have to get my glasses on. First, let me say how much I appreciate the Blackboard Council and the Mountain District for receiving the EA Larry Drummond Lifetime Scouting Achievement Award. I want to thank God for allowing me to have the opportunity to share scouting with so many scouts over the years. I want to thank my wife Susan and my daughters Mallory Beery and Camden Nolen for their love, patience, and support that they've shown over the years. I know it hasn't been easy. Susan said she's a scout with her. That was a phrase that Miss Leahy had because when the scouts go camping, she's at home by herself with the girls. I'm proud to be one of 6 children of Charles and Louise Nolen and to have had the opportunity to grow up in a loving family in a small town of Fayette, Alabama. For all of you who know the Travis and May Hudson family, you know that I'm married to a family of athletes. Luckily for me, Coach Hudson loved his farm and his cows, as well as sports and golf. After Susan and I became engaged, he took us over to Musgrove Country Club where he was going to give me a golf lesson. And some of my first cousins out here know I'm not an athlete, I'm not a golfer, but Coach Hudson insisted. And so we got out to the driving range and he showed me how to hold the club and gave me a few instructions. And about that time, 3 or 4 golf carts drove up, and that was the first time I met Larry Drummond. Coach introduced me to all these men, and they sat there. It was a hot day, and he went to the bag, and he reached in, and as he pulled out, he said, "Nolen," that's what the Hudson's called. He said, "Nolen, this is my favorite driver." He said, "Show these fellas what you can do." It happened. As I swung through, the club literally, Sue said, whirly-bird into the pine tree. And when I looked back, all the golf carts were just driving off. Nobody laughed, but that was my first and last golf lesson with Coach Hudson. Luckily, after his heart transplant, Danny Hayes, we'd come back, we were getting ready for Philmont, and we brought the contingency by to see the Hudsons. And Mr. Hudson actually came out in the front yard and gave those 8 boys, scouts, a golf lesson. And they all got to hit balls in the front yard into the pasture. So that was great. I'm proud to say that many years, I want to thank all the moms and dads who've allowed me the opportunity to share scouting and its principles with their sons. I was hoping Miss Carolyn would be here. I call her Miss Scout Mom. My Eagles are over here. All the Eagles that are here, but the Jumping family. Clay was my very first Eagle. For the lawyers in here, some of you court-minded people, Judge Clay's Jumping is their father. And so Clay's application, got it all ready. We sent it off to Nashville, waited, and an envelope came. And I'll never forget the day we opened it and stamped across it, it said denied.
And the secretary at that time, she transposed the date or something. It was a very simple fix, but it scared Stephen Nolen to death. And I'm proud that all of those boys all became Eagle Scouts. Many of Troop 45 Eagles are here in this crowd today, and I want to say thank you for coming. Some I hadn't seen in a while. I told some of these adults up here, I hope I can recognize them. A lot of times in Fed, I'll be in Walmart, and a grown man will walk up with his kids, and he'll say, "Hey, Mr. Nolen, how much I enjoyed scouting." And when he walks away, I think, I'm not sure I know it. I don't remember, because there's been so many over 37 years. But most of my Eagle Scouts, I know and love them all. I have 7 grandchildren, and I'm proud that now even Abby and the girls can be Eagle Scouts one day. Candace there with the baby. Greg West was holding the youngest one, Tom Sawyer Mullen, and I hope someday that he'll be an Eagle Scout, because the principles that scouting provides to these young men and women is correct. It helps our society be a better place. Although I will be turning 65 in just a few days, it's still my wish for myself and all scouts to have the trail winding ahead of us, to see the view from the ridge and smell the smoke of a campfire and see the stars in the sky and canoe down the river, and above all, to be happy. One thing that I learned from my father, who died when he was 58, my last year of law school, was to live life like there was no tomorrow, and to be happy, and do all that you could to help other people each day. Thank you for this great honor. Thank you.
And now I'm privileged to introduce another very special guest that's with us today. He is a well-known and much-loved former quarterback for the University of Alabama, the current football radio analyst for the Crimson Tide Sports Network. Give a big Walker County welcome to Tyler Watts.
Thank y'all so much. This is an amazing event that y'all have here. I'm definitely honored to be a part of it. And it's definitely my honor, to introduce the keynote speaker today, the athletic director at the University of Alabama, Coach Byrne. If you would, Coach, come on up here.
Tyler, good to see you, man.
Always great seeing you.
Are we all together? Okay. There we go. We're going to cuddle up next to each other here.
It's like we're dating again.
Yeah.
Did you have to do this when you were getting all those coaches to come to Alabama?
There you go. Actually, interviewed Coach DeBoer in a hotel room, kind of, because I brought Regina, my wife, on the front end because of the transfer portal. It used to be where I'd bring her in the back end because guys, those who aren't married yet, happy wife, happy life, okay? And so I bring Regina in to meet the spouse. And on this one, when Coach Saban retired, I said, we were talking the day, 2 days before we knew he may be retiring. And I said, I think you need to come in on the front end. So we were all kind of crammed into a hotel room in Seattle, and it was about like this, to be honest.
Well, I know when you came to Alabama, everybody thought you had the easiest job in the world. A winning football program, everything was just hunky-dory. I mean, it was a cakewalk for you. And it got real serious real quick, and no one was jealous of you there for a while. Quite a bit has changed in college athletics in general, not only during your career, but more importantly over the last 8 years while you've been at Alabama. Talk about just the focus of how your job has changed, where the focus of the athletic department is moving forward.
Yeah, it's changed dramatically. In fact, we met with all of our head coaches, and we have an all-staff meeting. We have about 350 employees. We have 650 young men and young women in our department. We have 2 all-staff meetings a year. We meet with all the student athletes collectively at the beginning of the year, and then we have monthly head coaches meetings. And about 2 months ago, I had all the head coaches bring all their assistant coaches. I had them bring their operations people, strength and conditioning, our trainers for the sports, and so on. Because I'm actually gonna ask you to raise your hand, and it's okay if you don't raise your hand here, okay? How many of you know about the House litigation in college sports right now? Handful, not many people. It's the biggest change in college sports since the NCAA got started under President Roosevelt. Okay? There's a settlement that's going to be, there's a hearing on April 7th, which I think is the day of the national championship men's basketball game. And it's going to be heard by Judge Wilkin out in the 9th District of California. And she will make a ruling on a preliminary, she'll give an opinion and hopefully give a final ruling within a week or so after that. But we're going to have, basically, in a nutshell, you have NIL, name, image, and likeness, starting in 2021. With the statute of limitations going back to about late 2016, student athletes in that time frame, 16 to 21, sued the NCAA, sued the conferences, they can't sue the schools. And basically the settlement, if it would have gone to trial, we would have lost, it would have been about $9 billion in damages, okay? So there's a settlement that is about $2.8 billion in back damages, plus rev share going forward with student athletes of about $21 million a year on average for the Power 4 conferences. I don't want to bore you with all that. That's about all I spend my time doing right now. And Jay Sewell, our men's golf coach, who Tab knows well, and who's done a wonderful job, won 2 national championships, he said to me during COVID, he said one day, he said, "Greg, are we ever going to get back to being AD and coaching?" And I told him about a year ago, I said, "Man, I think you've gotten back to coaching. I haven't gotten back to AD in a whole lot because of what we're spending our time on." And so I think as an industry, we were slow to change. We weren't probably progressive enough to realize, hey, there were some legal issues that we probably weren't paying attention to. But with that, we have such an interesting model. We have 21 sports at Alabama. Last night we beat LSU in women's basketball. It was awesome. And to see those kids celebrate and to be in that locker room after the game and have everybody so excited, that's what you love about what you get to do, right? And at the same time, too, it's now to where the focus so much is on, for a lot of kids, is, hey, how much money can there be potentially? Forget about the scholarship, forget about education, which is the backbone of what we do, and we can't ever lose sight of that. But it's changed the focus day in and day out. And so trying to evolve with this, and, as Coach Saban would say to me pretty regularly, he said, Greg, the dinosaurs didn't adapt. So you got to continue to adapt in what you do. And so being an AD is much different than what it was even 8 years ago when Regina and I were so fortunate to be able to come be part of the University of Alabama.
So let's talk a little bit now that we're a blue blood in basketball. Let's talk about the job that Coach Oates has done, what you saw in him when you initially reached out, and just any future plans. Somebody mentioned this earlier, it's the first time I've ever heard it, about possibly getting a new basketball arena.
Really? You think, really? I never heard of that before. Coaching. So one of the things you want with your coach is you want stability. Okay, you want stability with the head coach, you want stability with the assistant coaches. Constant change is not good for the overall health of a program. And so sometimes, you lose a tough game or you have a tough season, and there'll be, in today's world of the message boards and the Twitters and all the different things out there, you're always going to have the fire the coach crowd, right? One of the things in my role is you got to block out a lot of that noise. You can't have to be influenced by that. When you make a change in coaches, you do it because it's the right thing for the long-term health of the program. Period. That's it. Not because you lost the game, not because you had a bad season. And the long-term health can be a lot of different things. Obviously, there's a reason to keep score, right? But at the same time, too, it also could be, what's the culture within the program, academically, socially, across the board? Is it one where you're just continuing to have legal issue after legal issue? That could be a causative at some point. And so, but you always want to be watching. The day, again, it's over 8 years ago now, Regina and I came to Tuscaloosa. The day of the press conference, I got asked 9,000 times, what does it feel like to be the guy that's going to hire Nick Saban's replacement? May have been the easiest question you would ever get asked in the world. We're going to try to kick that can down the road as far as we can, right? I'm not very smart, but I knew that much. But at the same time, too, and I've said this publicly before, it would have been irresponsible on my part to not be prepared when that day came, hoping that it wouldn't. And so you're always watching coaches. And so with Nate Oates in basketball, I was at Alabama, and I'm sitting somewhere. I was in a restaurant watching the game, but I watched Arizona and Buffalo play in the NCAA tournament. Arizona, the #1 pick in the draft, DeAndre Ayton playing for him. Buffalo beat them like a drum. And I watched the style of ball they were playing. Their defense was relentless. And I was paying attention to them, and power of Google, right? Did a quick Google search. It was like, Nate Oates, or who's the head coach of Buffalo? And it was a guy that was coaching high school basketball at that time, like 4 years earlier. And so you just file in the back of your head and say, okay, you never know down the road what could happen. And so when that time came along, we did have the transfer portal, and we had some good players. We had Herb Jones, we had Kyra Lewis, and a number of others, John Petty, and so I was very focused on trying to hold the roster together, but in about 2.5 days, interviewed 5 coaches. Nate was the 5th one. I was about ready to go interview somebody else the next day, and kind of fell in love with Nate. I think I landed in Buffalo, which, if any of you have been to Buffalo the first week of March, makes you appreciate Alabama, right? And he was, and they were talking. I remember he picked this up at the airport. I had Jeff Puritan with me, and he's like, Nate, this is awful, this weather. He said, shoot, this is the best day we've had in 6 months. And I said, well, I don't know if this is going to work out at this point, but I said, if you end up at Alabama, you're going to like the weather a lot better down there. And so when you're hiring a coach, you have to make a long-term decision. You hope it's an 8, 10, 12, 15 plus year decision. And you're going to make that decision in about 2.5, 3 hours, right? And maybe 4 hours. And when you sit down with a coach, and I tell every aspiring coach this when they reach out to me, I say, you got to be able to talk about it A to Z, academics to zone defense. How are you going to run your program? What are you going to do? And Nate had a very clear basically vision for how he would run a program at a place like Alabama. He talked a lot about his basketball philosophy. I thought he was ahead of the curve of how he used analytics. The guy's a high school math teacher at that point, again, 4 or 5 years earlier. And I said to him, part of what has attracted me to you is your humility. Part of what attracted me is your work ethic. And here's a story for the scouts and Steve, Mr. Steve, congratulations on what a great recognition for you. But one of the tricks, and it's the only original idea I've ever had, is when I'm getting really serious about a coach, I ask the coach, I said, I want a guy who played a lot, I want a guy that played some, and I want a guy that never got off the bench. I want their cell phone numbers, and if you tell them I'm calling them, I'm not going to hire you. And you want to try me, okay? And I'll say, so I block my number, and I'll call and I'll say, hey, I'm Greg, I research coaches, I'm calling about a coach. Tell them the truth, my name's Greg, and I like to research coaches, all right? And so, never lie. And so I'm talking to this young man who's playing in Greece that Nate had given me. And I said, hey, Greg, and I called him at like 2 o'clock in the morning in Buffalo. And so it was like 9 a.m. over there. And I said, I'm calling about your old coach, Coach Oates. And he's like, oh, I'm a man. Coach Oates. I said, yeah. And he said, he's the best. I said, okay, tell me about your experience with him. And he said, well, I'm going to give you, it's a long story, but I'll make it as short as I can. So I grew up in Pasadena, California. I go to play basketball at Northern Arizona University, which most of you have probably never heard of. It's not a real big school. And he said, I transfer back home and play at Compton Community College. Okay? And he said, when I went to Northern Arizona, they recruited me as a 4 or 5, so a post in basketball. And I said, all right, that sounds good. He said, well, I'm back at Compton. I'm about ready to sign a Division II scholarship. And one of Coach Oates' assistants sees me at this tournament, and they recruit me to Buffalo. And he said, I'm now in Greece playing professional basketball after never getting off the bench at NAU, and I'm a point guard. Okay? For those who don't know much about basketball, if you're a 4 or 5, you got to be at least my height or taller, 6'5", 6'6" to 7 foot, something like that. And your skill set's completely different. And he said, Coach Oates got in the gym with me and taught me and grew me and developed me as a player, got me to see the game in ways I never saw before. I never make a decision in my life of any consequence where I don't call Coach Oates and get his advice. Because I knew he cared about me not only as a basketball player, but he cared about me as a person. I was like, that's who I want coaching our kids, right? And then seeing this young man have the opportunity to provide for his family in a way they may not have ever been able to do before, and the belief that he had, and Nate's tough on him. Nate's tough on his kids. I want that. That's good. We need that, right? And so but I'll be honest with you. Did I know he was going to take us to the Final Four for the first time? I'd be lying. I didn't know that. Did I like our chances? Yep. And that's what you do when you make those decisions. You make the best decision that you can with the information that you have. And you got to make sure when you're hiring a coach, whether it's Nate Oates, whether it's Kalen DeBoer, whether it's Margaret Gear or swim coach, right? That you stay focused on the task at hand, because the responsibility you have to the young people that are in your program to make sure they have a head coach that you would want your son or daughter to play for to develop to the best of their abilities.
So the SEC made a really focus several years ago on making our basketball better, and there is no doubt that it has now. I think SEC has, it's just like football. Most of the top 10 is SEC schools. Is this now a destination place where not only coaches want to come because they know they're going to get the players, but can they get the support? Can this be a destination place for them? Do programs have the ability to be more than just football?
Yeah, we absolutely do. I had ties out with the Pac-12 for a long time. Pac-12 doesn't exist any longer, and it's sad because it should. But so at 36 years old, I became the AD at Mississippi State, and I was there, and for whatever reason, the University of Arizona came after me, and I 3 different times said, I'm not going, I don't want to move, I want to be at Starkville. And so the former president of NCAA basically said, great, you're taking this job. It's like the Godfather telling you. It's like Mr. Drummond would come and say, son, you're taking this thing. Yes, Godfather, I got it. And so I went out there and I saw how they were spending all their money in the conference office rather than trying to get resources to the institution. And as an example, they were spending $8 million a year on rent, not purchasing, rent for a facility in downtown San Francisco that maybe 1% of the student athletes in the Pac-12 would ever get to. SEC pays for $1 a year in downtown Birmingham, and somehow they can still get a first down, right? And when we questioned that, we were told you didn't know what you're talking about, and basically mind your own business. And so I was really concerned about, because that league is really good Olympic-wise. I mean, there's such a rich history. There's rich history of basketball, both men's and women's. And eventually, if you don't support your institutions, then you're going to fall behind. And that's what took place in the SEC. Commissioner Slime, Commissioner Sankey both, and the presidents, as well as the ADs, did a really good job of saying, hey, we can be great at whatever we do, right? We've got so many more Olympians than we've ever had before. What's taking place in men's basketball? You could argue that our women's basketball is as strong as anybody in the country. Look at our rich history of baseball, softball, across the board in our sports. The tagline for the SEC is it just means more. And That's the truth, and that's the strength of ours. There's challenges with that, but there's so many great things about that too. Why wouldn't you want to? All you got to go do when you come down to campus, you drive through our parking lots in the dorms, California, New York, Illinois, Texas, license plates all over the place, right? Georgia, Louisiana license plates. People want to be a part of it, the University of Alabama. And, you know, all of my friends that come out that visit and from other parts of the country are like, oh, this place is great. It's like, yeah, don't go tell too many people. We don't want too much more traffic, but it is such a special place and we have such a national brand because of what's happened in football. Why can't that be the case in men's basketball and everything else that we do?
So you had mentioned the golf program in there. Talk about the new facilities that were recently built for them.
Yeah, we're excited about that. We obviously have a rich history. The Hudson family, Tab was a great player for us. Steve's a great player. Jerry Pate, so many others. And so then at the same time too, you have to continue to evolve with what takes place. And we had we'd been out at Old Colony, and quite frankly, it was not up to the level of what we were competing against day in and day out. And we had a lot of donors who have been really supportive of our golf programs, especially Jay Sewell, but Mick Potter too, who won the national championship, had cultivated a lot of relationships. And so we went and just unveiled our new golf facility about in the last year. And I'll tell you a really quick story. I grew up with a guy named Casey Martin. If you remember Casey sued the PGA Tour in the mid-90s to ride a golf cart. Okay, we grew up together. For instance, we were 12 years old. He's the golf coach at Oregon now. He won a national championship there. He was Tiger Woods' teammate at Stanford. Casey had been playing. They play out of his courses not great, and he'd always been wanting Phil Knight, the founder of Nike, to build him a golf course, and Phil just had not shown interest in doing that. So on this Monday, they announced their new golf house out of their so-so golf course, and it's about 6,000 square feet. They're going to name it after Peter Jacobson, who was a great golfer at Oregon and on the PGA Tour. And I called Case, and I knew we had our deal up our sleeve. We hadn't announced it yet. So I called Case on Monday, and I said, Case, you got your new golf facility. I'm so excited for you. And I'm Byrne to him. He's like, Byrne, thanks, man. You know, it's not the new course, and it's out at Emerald Valley. It's not at Eugene Country Club, but it's a good step. I was like, yeah, man, that's awesome. I know you worked harder than I'm proud of you, man. He said, thanks, Byrne. I appreciate it. Thursday, we announced our new 18,000 square foot clubhouse, 9-hole private course, all this stuff. And about an hour later, I get a text from Case that just said, damn, Byrne. So we're really excited about it, and it really has set the college golf world on fire. Davis Love, the golfer, was just out there this week. He was involved in it somewhat, and the response we got from our alums, from our current player, Nick Dunlap. When I showed it to Justin Thomas the first time, he's like, this may be the coolest golf concept I've ever seen. So it's making a difference in recruiting for us, and we're excited about our future there.
What are the challenges of balancing facilities versus NIL money and things of that nature?
Yeah, so one thing I didn't say about the house settlement, part of the house settlement which gives us some hope, okay, is that NIL is supposed to go now, you're going to have your rev share number, which is going to be $21 million for us. Then the settlement allows you to enforce your rules. So there's actually a new body, not the NCAA, that is being created to enforce fair market value NIL. So if you're Nick Dunlap, you're the first guy first amateur to win on the PGA Tour since Phil Mickelson, or if you're Nick Dunlap and you won as a U.S. amateur, you haven't won yet, you're going to have some legitimate NIL value that you can now capitalize on, but it's going to have to pass the clearinghouse and say, yes, this is legitimate. If you talk to an NFL coach, their offensive line usually doesn't have any marketing deals. No offense to offensive line, they're really important. The quarterback, on the other hand, usually has some market value. And so when Bryce Young wins the Heisman Trophy, he has market value. You're going to be allowed to capitalize on that. That's going to be a good thing, right? And our state of Alabama will give us an opportunity to have a lot of advantages because of how many people watch our campuses, our contests and games. We have the most watched, I don't know if we had the most watched college football game this year outside the playoff, but we were close. I think we did with the Georgia game. We've had the most watched men's basketball game this year. Okay, so people watch Alabama. That will help us. Kid has a lot of social media following. That will help the kid capitalize on that. And so what has happened with that is I think you're going to see a slowdown in facilities. So back, I didn't answer your arena question very much on purpose. But what we'll do, and I'm kidding, Tyler, I want to say that.
I don't know what else y'all can build down there.
Yeah, well, I'm getting in the weeds here, so I apologize for that. Anybody, so we have 21 sports, we have 650 kids, we have a lot of infrastructure to support all that, right? What do you think we spent on deferred maintenance last year just to keep up what we have? Take a guess. And before COVID, we usually spent about $4 million to $5 million a year. 10? $23 million last year on deferred maintenance. Most, 95% of it, you will never even notice one change, okay? And one of my lines I like to use, that nobody seems to like except for me, is that, people think we have more money than the Vatican, right? It's like, oh, they got it, they've got the money, they've got the money. We ran a $5 million deficit last year, okay? And so, the late great Cecil Hurt would say to me, Greg, people love spending other people's money, right? And I'm guilty of that at times, so I'm not being critical of that. And so I do think the facility train is going to slow down. However, back to Coleman Coliseum, and we are building a new practice facility, which is what Nate really wanted, okay, because that's where he's going to spend 98% of his time. We're building a new practice facility. It's already broke ground, dirt's moving. Coleman, we walked in, before COVID, we thought we could get a new 10,000-seat arena, which if you looked at our historical averages, you don't build your church for Easter Sunday, right? You build it for the rest of the year. And we had about, on average, for a good game, an Auburn game, a Tennessee game, whatever it may be, we'd have about 11,000 in there. That would be the highest. If we were sitting at the gates of heaven and St. Peter came up to us and said, have we always told the truth of what our actual attendance was in there, we may have been sent to at least purgatory for a while, okay? And so sometimes attendance numbers are escalated a bit. We have legitimate 13,000 seats we can sell inside the Coleman Coliseum, but about 2,000 of those you're at a sight line where I'm sitting here like this and the court's over here. Okay, so we haven't sold those seats this year. Well, we're selling those now. And so we probably have more demand for that. Well, before COVID, we thought we could get a new 10,000-seat arena for about $180 million. And then every meeting we went into post-COVID, the price went up by about 25 to 40 million bucks. Back to thinking, hey, you got the money, that's a lot of money, okay? We're gonna have to address it. We don't have a choice. But I was wrong, which one of the things as a leader, you have to admit when you're wrong about something. That's okay, right? I was wrong to think that 10,000 was the number. It's probably higher than that. Well, what's the most expensive seats to build if anybody's built buildings? The higher up you go, the more expensive it gets. What's the least valuable seat in the house? The higher up, right? So it's not a really good formula that you're working with. And so we're going to have to address Coleman long term. We're addressing day to day for our men's and women's team, which is really good. They're very excited about it. We've had a lot of great donor support for it. But that issue hasn't gone away, mostly because of the age of the facility. It's 60 plus, it's almost 60 years old. And, so, but I think overall, the most important thing that you have to be there is making sure you're going to be competitive in the rev share and that you're maximizing legitimate name, image, and likeness opportunities so the young men and young women in our program that have market value can capitalize on those. And so back to what you're doing right now with our industry, it's just changing dramatically. And we'll adjust. We'll figure it out. And we have to, because it's important to who we are. It's important to our university, it's important to our state, it's important to how a lot of people identify our wonderful state and our wonderful people.
Well, your opening comments were about Coach Saban kicking that can down the road. We're at the can. There's no more kicking it down. It's going to take 5 or 10 minutes. Talk about that week leading up to it, even the years prior to it that led to that point when y'all had the discussion that he was no longer going to coach.
Yeah, he was. I always really look at it working with him. I worked with him longer than any AD ever worked with him. And about 7.5 years, or 7 years until he retired. And, there's a reason why he is who he is. And obviously we've had two incredible incredibly historic coaches, iconic coaches at the University of Alabama. We've had other great coaches too, but we have two iconic coaches, Coach Byrne and Coach Saban. And after about 3 years or so that I'd been here, he would never say one word about it during the season, never. We would meet every Sunday at 3 o'clock, and he'd be watching film with the man's like clockwork, right? And he'd be watching the defense of who he was going to be playing the next week in the film room. And I'd go in and say, hey, I'd have, you know, if I'd have one thing or I'd have 4 things. Sometimes if I didn't have anything, I still did it because it was part of the schedule. And we'd talk about whatever things I needed to alert him on, and then if he had anything for me, that would be our time. So never would talk about it. Then about 3 or so years into it, at the end of the season, we would sit down and talk about a lot of different things, and he would brought it up the first time. I never brought it up, right? Because I never wanted to think for a second that it was any type of a leading conversation, because it certainly wasn't. And and obviously I felt like when he started talking to me about it, because hopefully we had a trust level there, which we do. And I met with him this morning. He's back in town right now. We met this morning for a while. And just watching him and how he would operate. I've been around coaches my entire life. I've never seen a more structured person in managing their time than Coach Saban. And I don't know who's second, right? And so over the last few years, he had started talking about, I'm not sure what this will, you know, I want to keep going. He made that clear, but I'm not sure how much longer I want to go. Just can't tell anybody. Well, I'm a real one. I don't have any skills, which you all can tell, but I'm pretty good at keeping a secret. There's a guy named Mr. Gatton who has a business school named after him in Kentucky. God rest his soul. Mr. Gatton said to me one day, he said, Greg, he said, I can keep a secret. It's all the people I tell that can't keep one. So I remember that, right? And so I told Coach, it's with us, and I obviously, I didn't tell Regina. I just left it alone and kept it quiet. But we prepared. We started preparing for the day when that time would come. And so he said this publicly when he did retire. He said after the 2023 season, or 2022 season, we did sit down. He told me, he said, you know, this is going to be more year to year now. And so after the Rose Bowl, where we lost to Michigan, that was on a Monday. We flew back to Tuscaloosa on Tuesday. Wednesday, Thursday, he was doing some roster and staff stuff. And then Miss Terry would always go away for a few days after that. So they were down in Florida, and he called me on Friday, and he said, are you around next week? And I was supposed to be in Houston one day, but I said, yeah, Coach, I'm here. I'm supposed to be in Houston, but if I need to move, I will. Because I knew when that talk was going to come, not knowing which direction it was going to go. And he said, all right, I get back Monday night, I'll call you on Tuesday. So we talked Tuesday, and we spent a lot of time together, and he couldn't have been better. And then he said, but he wasn't ready to make a decision. And then he said Wednesday, he said, I'll call you tomorrow. So we talked on Wednesday, which is the day he retired. And he heard me say multiple times to him, we don't want you to retire. I wanted him to hear that very clearly. But I also felt the responsibility to say to the coach, you also deserve the right to retire at some point. I've never been to anybody's funeral where they said they wish they would have spent more time in the office, right? And so he couldn't have been better. And so we did a documentary this year that is going to help us with NIL. It's just a different world. We got to adjust, right? So the ups and downs of this season. And it's on Fox Nation. It's a streaming service. The first 2 episodes, I think, are out now. I said, I'm going to be standing in the back of the room. And if you start talking about off-season conditioning and priorities and academics, then I'm going to disappear out the back of the room. Nobody knows I was going to be in there. Okay? But if you start talking about the retirement speech, then the plan goes into action. And I had walked him through the day before what the plan was at a 30,000-foot level. And I even said to him, this says you so how special he is. I said to Coach, when the conversation on Tuesday, the day before we retired, was getting pretty serious, I said, Coach, I feel like I got to talk to you more about what's next. And I said, I figured you'd be disappointed in me if I wasn't prepared. He said, yeah, absolutely I would be. That's him, right? And he couldn't have been better, and continues to be. I admire the man. I love the man. It's been an honor to get to work with him and continue to work with him. And basically, once he walked off the stage, I got up there and I told the team, I said, I need 72 hours Nobody goes in the transfer portal in 72 hours. And I started calling out the captains and the leaders, and I said, and you're going to make sure that that doesn't happen. And then we had 7 staff members identified that they didn't even know that yet, that they were going to pull the roster together while we were out talking to potential candidates. And we knew the pool was about this deep, right? And I had a video that we sent out to the parents so they could hear from me, basically saying you're going to hear all sorts of speculation, you're going to get every single call, there's going to be sharks in the water. And I'm telling you who we are, what we're about, how we invest in your son in a program is not changing. The standard in Alabama is not going to change. It will not be, there will be challenges in the transition, right? That's going to happen, it's guaranteed. But who we are and what we're about is not changing. And so, we lost a couple, okay, we did. But overall, I'm really proud of Coach DeBoer, I'm proud of Coach Saban, I'm proud of the leadership on our team, that we went through, really, if you look at the historical transitions and we studied them, it was John Wooden's, Coach Bryant's, Pat Summit, the list is short, right? And so we tried to do the very best we could, knowing that those transitions have usually been pretty tough. And I was sitting there this weekend and trying to think a little bit about just what's ahead as we're going into late winter, spring, preparing for the transfer portal one last time before fair market value is in place. But one of the things I thought about a year ago right now, you know, we had the transfer portal open up for 30 days where we couldn't go get anybody else and our roster could get rated, right? And we lost a few, but we had either one that left. Proctor, our left tackle, was a great kid, and then came back. And I saw him after he came back because we worked hard on keeping him here. You know, as we went out there, and one of the things I was trying to tell our fan base when I put a couple tweets out, which was all part of the plan, was that you're going to hear all sorts of speculation. I know this may be a surprise to you, but sometimes when you hear a coach's name out for a job, they have absolutely no interest in the job. They're just trying to use leverage to where they're at. I know that's a shocker, right? But we had to know that these waters we were going to be in were going to be very challenging. And so I'm really proud of Coach DeBoer. Back to the stories I told you about Nate Oates, right? Caitlin DeBoer's got a lot of those stories too. And the guy has won whatever level he's been at. Did I expect the transition to be perfect? No, that wasn't going to happen. Guarantee it on the front end, it wasn't going to happen. But do I believe in what we're doing? And so I was saying this weekend when I was thinking, last year this time the transfer portal had just closed. We're trying to keep the rock, you know, Nolen, Michigan's, they had a kid or two that were interested in coming our way. And then we had Coach Grubb had been here, left. We didn't have an offensive coordinator at this point. We didn't have implemented anything offensively. The defense was just starting to have talks about it, you know. And right now, one of the things with the transfer portal that happens is kids don't learn football. They learn systems, and they're really not learning football, which is it's driving the NFL crazy, right? Kids aren't as developed as they should be because they're not staying in a stable environment, which is what's such a great thing about scouts. And so what I will tell you is, will there be any more bumps in the road? Yeah, it's going to happen at some level. But do I believe in where we're going and what we're doing long term? You're gosh darn right I do. And I'm excited about what that future holds for the University of Alabama and for our young men in our program, our athletic department, our university, our fan base, our alums, our former letter winners, everybody. And I'm very optimistic about what's ahead for us. And a big reason of that, I'm sure we got Auburn fans in here and other schools too, but our fans, guys are awesome. You care so much about our university, you care so much about our history and what it means to us. And I can tell you as just a guy that's very fortunate to be a small part of it, that we don't take that for granted, and we genuinely appreciate the support that we have from everybody that's part of such a special place.
Coach, I got a quick two-part question just to wrap this up. Going back to basketball real quick. In your wildest dreams, did you ever think there'd be a 1 versus 2 in the nation matchup in this state? And 2, I assume next Saturday's going to be a pretty tough ticket. Is there a +1 opportunity for me to get that? I'm just asking.
Yeah, I don't blame you. Regina's not going because last year I hadn't been home for like 2 weeks, And I said to her, hey, just come to me with the game, to the game at Auburn. I said, I don't want to go. I said, just please. We haven't seen each other for 2 weeks. I'm going somewhere else in a few days. And she's like, all right, I'll go. Well, I don't like sitting behind the bench because you can't see anything, right? And so we sat up in the second balcony with our player parents. And some Auburn fan, a few rows below us, knows who I am. And Auburn beat us like a drum that day for the most part, right? And every time they're doing something, he is giving me the business. And I'm not paying any attention to him. And all of a sudden, because it happens, it's part of the job, right? And all of a sudden, I see Regina just go, ah! And I said, what, did you just interact with that guy? And she says, yeah, he needs to stop. I said, you can't do that. So she's not coming this year. But sometimes, and the radio guys don't like it, but every once in a while I show up in the booth because I just want to get away from it all, the Southwest Airlines commercials. So I may end up sitting next to Brian Passek and Chris Stewart at the game on Saturday at Auburn if they can just give me a little seat, because I really don't want to get the business the entire game from some Auburn fan. But how cool is that 1 versus 2? And again, the most watched college basketball game in the country this year. 2.5 million people were watching that game. If we can be great in football, in the basketballs, and baseball and softball, we're a walking billboard for our great state throughout the year. And how cool is that? And there's a reason why young men and young women within the Southeast, within the West, the Northeast, the Midwest, want to come and have a taste of the nectar. Right? They want to be a part of the special place that we are, and we're seeing that. Now, what I also think going forward with the rev share model, okay, I think there will be some schools that will invest in some sports while others won't. And I don't like that. I want it to be as even a playing field as we can, a level playing field as we can, because, listen, some school may decide to go dump, $3 million a year in rev share for track, like Oregon, for instance. They're rich track history, right? We're not going to do that, right? And so, and I'm just picking that as an example. And if a school in golf says, hey, we're going to put rev share in the men's golf, let's say Oklahoma State, I don't know if they are or not, I'm just using that as an example. That may be a tough one. But I do believe at the end of the day, for us to be strong and have as many sports as we can, which we have 21 at Alabama, we need to be strong in football. We got to be strong in men's basketball. And that gives us an opportunity to be strong in everything else that we do to the best of our abilities. And so I'm excited about what Nate's done with our program. I think the future is very bright. He agreed to an $18 million buyout. That's a lot of money. Now, was I concerned when Calipari went to Arkansas? Maybe for a few minutes. But the other thing, here's a coaching thing. Anytime you're dealing with a coach and his or her name's being mentioned for another job and they go dark on you, that's not good. Nate never went dark on me for 1 minute. And that's the kind of person he is. He and I've got a great relationship, and he knows how much we care about basketball at the University of Alabama. We want to be great at what we do.
Coach Byrne, thank you so much for being with us today.
I know everybody needs to get back to work, but what an awesome event we've had. What an honor it's been to be a part of it. We appreciate everybody that's been here today and all your contributions. Not only for awarding the 13th annual to Dr. Nolen, we appreciate you and all that you do, and just the opportunity to show our support towards the Scouts. I'm pleased to announce that since our kickoff early in January, We have, of our goal of 135, Zach just gave me a number, 112,500 has been raised, and that was, we did not go in with that number today, so a lot of that came, several of that came in today. So I just want to thank everyone for coming today, and have a safe trip back to work and home. You are dismissed.